Your pigment unknown will be either soluble in water or in ethanol. To determine what the pigment is, first we have to identify what it's dissolved in, or what its solvent is, and then we have to identify from 6 possible pigments what it is. One possible pigment is Marxalot marker. And so we will make a large mark that we can test. Here's another, Sharpie permanent marker. Now, although there is quite a bit of difference here, we may not see that in our samples that will be given later. Find out if they are soluble in water or in ethanol. We will take a water sample and put a drop on the paper. We will take an ethanol sample and put in a separate portion. We can see already that one of these samples is very soluble in ethanol and not in water. We will see them move. The water will move or dissolve the material, or the ethanol will. And that's the one that we're going to use then as the solvent. So let's look at the Sharpie. Knowing that its solvent is ethanol would be the best way to get a good sample of that. What we're going to do is cut a good sample of each. And place it in 5 to 10 milliliters of the ethanol. Now, as it sits in the ethanol, it will dissolve and it will form a solution of pigment. Now, because ethanol is the best solvent for this group of pigments, we're going to do the same for the Marxalot marker. And we will put that in its own ethanol sample. First thing we did was identify whether these pigments would be soluble in ethanol or in water, and we found that it was ethanol. Now we have dissolved some of each pigment in the ethanol, and so we want to see what their spectrograph will look like. Let us take the Marxalot. We will take the pigment sample out. And we will fill a cuvette with the sample. I'm not going to fill all the way to the top, only about 2/3 of the way. I'm going to place the cuvette in test tube holder so it doesn't fall over. I'm going to do the same with the Sharpie. Here's the Sharpie pigment. And we should make sure that we know which one is which. I would suggest that you label it somehow and place it in the test tube rack. So I'm going to put them side by side for now. And let's take a look at how the SpectroViz works. We're now ready to begin analyzing our pigments. To start, we need to calibrate our SpectroViz Plus. The SpectroViz Plus has a light that shines through the sample. There's a certain amount of the sample that's absorbed, and we need to know, and the SpectroViz needs to identify what is absorbed by the ethanol so that it does not become part of the absorption curve of the pigments.
So we have the ethanol in the SpectroViz Plus right now.
We do.
All right.
Let's go to the menu bar to experiment, where we will calibrate our SpectroViz. It is identified that it is a spectrometer. You will click that. This window will come up. We can skip the warm-up because our SpectroViz has been plugged into the computer and the light has been on for over 10 minutes. However, if you're just plugging it in, do not skip that warm-up. When we skip it, it shows finish calibration, and that's what we want to do. It will go through the wavelengths of light, identifying exactly which ones are absorbed, which ones are not, and when it is finished, the OK will be highlighted and ready to push. Now we have calibrated our SpectroViz. From there, we begin looking at our samples. This is Sharpie. I will go back to Logger Pro. I will click the Start button, and we should see a nice absorption curve for Sharpie. What we want to do is, first of all, look at where the greatest absorption is. The best way to identify exactly what that wavelength is to go to Analyze, to Examine, and now we will have a raster which we can bring along to the point of maximum absorbance. And if you look at it, our wavelength is 605.5 nanometers. That is an important number. Now we can go back to our spreadsheet or our worksheet. We can type in that in fact this is the Sharpie. We can show that there is a primary peak at 605.5 nanometers. And we can grab this grab the graph and should be able to transfer it. Let us click. We can't transfer it. Well, we'll start over again there.